Welcome back to Critic Cut. Today, let's talk about an old movie. Not many people have heard about this movie, but it's, I think, still today, probably one of the best movies ever made. And of course, it's starring the great Marlon Brando, who's probably one of the best actors who's ever lived. And it is called On the Waterfront. I've had people tell me in my own life that it's boring, so maybe it's just for people who love film. I don't know. That just is the curse I have, that I love film. Is that so wrong? But anyway, if you're not into Citizen Kane and old films, classic films, maybe you're not into it. But I think it is a wonderfully told story. Some of the best performances and writing I've seen in any film, even to this day. So that's another thing is, people assume because movies are black and white, or because, they didn't have cool visual effects back in those days, that, they aren't good movies. And it's just not true. The writing in early cinema, even going back to, obviously the 30s, Gone with the Wind, It's a Wonderful Life, some of these classic movies that are, still hold up even nearly a century later, and then obviously later on in the 40s and the 50s, some of my favorite films are from the 50s, so there's, just because they didn't have the same technology that we do today, it doesn't mean that they're not good films, that they still hold up even today in terms of story, and that's ultimately what cinema's about, right? It's a medium of telling stories, and, we're all built to tell stories as human beings, and that's a big problem I have today with Hollywood, is they're kind of losing the ability to tell good stories, even though they have all the flashy technology and cameras and CGI, but they're losing the storytelling, and that's sad, because even back then, even though they didn't have as good of cameras, it was black and white, they didn't have good visual effects, whatever, but they told good stories. I think Marlon Brando was one of the first that was like, method acting, right? You get into that era where now you're starting to get good acting, not just like theater acting, but like actually believable, real, emotion-driving performances that then add to that storytelling that's not just, a play acting, how, most of human history was when it came to acting was theater, right? Anyway, it's a really good movie. The writing is great. The performances are amazing. And it's won a lot of Oscars. It's not like, It's a Wonderful Life, which wasn't recognized as how great of a film it was when it came out. No, it was well received, and it was kind of a critique of the Hollywood blacklisting that was going on at that time, that people who, you were even just distantly, knew somebody who was a communist were like being blacklisted and not hired and stuff. Hey, I'm no fan of communism, but, that's not a way to treat people. I gotta say, in terms of Marlon Brando's acting, I think young Brando was even better than old Brando. A lot of people are familiar with, The Godfather, his performance in that, which was a great performance, or Apocalypse Now. But, I think it just doesn't, like, you look at his performance in a Streetcar Named Desire or On the Waterfront, and it just doesn't compare. It's not a super complicated story either, it's a pretty simple story, but told well, with great performances. There's some action and stuff in it, but, most of it's just about character, and what this character is going through, with having ties to the gang, while also wanting to, help this lady out, and the Reverend, and then kind of his character arc of being happy and content in this gang, and then realizing maybe he's on the wrong side of this, and then plays into his whole background being a boxer and his relationship with his brother. It's a great movie. Go check it out if you haven't. Have you seen On the Waterfront? Let me know in the comments below. And keep telling good stories.